All right, we have been waiting for this moment. It is time for the second ever roofing podcast, and we've already changed the name. Our first podcast was called We Were Roofing When Roofing Wasn't Cool, which I thought was a cool name, but apparently it's too many words. So we're changing today. We're not changing again as of today. This roofing podcast, which is going to reach new heights every episode, is called The Leaksmith.
There's a lot of great podcasts that change their names after a couple of episodes.
Really?
So we're in good company.
Okay, it's kind of like when you watch a sitcom and you go back, you're watching reruns and it's really found its groove, but you go back and look at the pilot episode and the characters haven't found themselves at all. So last week was preseason. This week is the final exhibition podcast. And next week, we hope to have listeners in all 51 states. I'm just kidding. He's kidding too, by the way. So next week we will, but we're always going to bring in the producer this morning asked me, he said, I can't wait to hear this because I don't know what you can talk about in a roofing podcast. Well, we can bring stuff to the roofing table that's going to make every listener an absolute expert. So if you don't need a roof, if you're not shopping for a roof, tune in anyway because it's going to come up at a party. You know how when like you're sitting on the sidelines at a rec game and there's a guy over here that knows everything about sports, you can be that person when it comes to roofing.
And going into storm season, that'd be a good thing to be.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, listen to this podcast 2 or 3 times. The average homeowner will know more about roofing than 98% of the general public and probably more than half of all roofers. So, but we do have the foundation of today's podcast, and we're going to talk about free roof culture, right? Mm-hmm. And that's going to be, why don't you kick us off on that and talk a little bit about free roof culture. Don't forget, at the end of every episode, we're going to give you an obscure but interesting fact that will amaze and delight you and you can use to entertain your friends and neighbors. And we're also going to give you a way to change the world for the better in one simple move every single episode. So, Phillip.
I thought we were going to split those.
We can. I can tell you.
What's the obscure fact?
The obscure fact is that when people are looking for a roof, they spend 95% of their time looking into the material. They want to compare apples to apples. So, you're not a fair person to ask, but when I ask this question of homeowners in general, what percentage of leaks come from material and what percentage of leaks come from workmanship? They generally guess something like 50-50. The actual percentage is 95-5. Mm-hmm. It takes so much capital investment to build a shingle in the first place that nobody can afford to build a bad one. Any shingle you buy is okay. Some are better than others, but 95% of leaks come from the guys who put the stuff on. And so we're going to talk quite a bit about that because that's where people can lose their shirt.
Yeah, no, that's really important. On the way out here, one of the sales guys sent me a text and said, he's at a customer's house right now. And he said, I'm at, we'll call him Joe Homeowner. I'm at Joe Homeowner's house. He had his roof put on by X roofing company about 2.5 years ago, and he's got shingles that are coming off already. He called them out, and they said the 2-year warranty was up.
Ooh, heartbreaker. I hate when that happens.
And they wanted $750 to come out and put the shingles up. So he was asking me if we could beat that price or not, because he said he told those guys to pound sand. But it just goes to show you the average warranty on workmanship in Georgia is about 2 years, and usually things start popping up anywhere from 2 to 8 years or 2 to 10 years. And if you don't have coverage for that, you're going to end up coming out of pocket.
That's right. So the guy felt lucky when he was buying the roof because he figured, hey, I'm looking at this material and the same ticket, apples to apples. Mm-hmm. I'm going to hire the cheap guys to put it on. And now he's angry and they're not answering the phone.
Yeah.
All right.
I guess that's a good segue into free roof culture.
Yeah.
So free roof culture is kind of a phrase that I've coined, but it's basically to talk about the state of Georgia and the way roofing really is handled for residential roofing in the state of Georgia for as compared to other states. So really in Georgia, we're the perfect storm for this to happen because we have severe weather on a regular basis. We also have basically zero barriers to entry for roofing, meaning you don't have to have a license, you don't have to have insurance. And so what this has done is in about 2008, prior to 2008, there was about 250 roofing contractors in North Georgia. All of them were actually real roofers. And you could call them and they could probably do a repair or a replacement. And the concept of replacing your roof.
This was what year?
About 2008.
So before then, all the roofers knew what they were doing?
Not all of them knew what they were doing, but it was a lot more of them knew what they were doing.
Okay.
That's for sure.
I got you.
So now, after 2008, we had hailstorms come through. The first big one was 2008, and that brought in the National Storm Chasers. These are guys with wrapped tractor trailers, 40-man sales teams, and they came out and started knocking doors, and they introduced the concept to homeowners of getting your roof replaced through your insurance. And then we had another storm.
What's wrong? Well, what's wrong with that? That sounds like a deal to me.
In the short term, if it's legitimate damage, there's nothing wrong with that.
Oh, okay.
What happened is we also had another storm in 2009, and the 250, 300 roofing contractors that were here already, most of us got caught flat-footed. We did not know how to handle insurance. That put a lot of those guys out of business. Some of the lucky ones were able to adapt. Thankfully, we were one of the ones that were able to adapt. But basically what that did is it brought all these national storm chasers in, and then it also brought people into the business because they heard from their family member, friend, that they got a roof through their insurance, and they saw that they thought it was easy. They thought they could just knock on some doors. And frankly, at the beginning of this, that it was easy.
It was easy.
You could be a personal trainer. You could be just a general builder, whatever, any business whatsoever. And if you decided that you were going to go knock doors tomorrow and say that you're a roofing contractor, you could do that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, most of those guys, what they would start to do in order to be competitive, because they didn't have longevity, or they were from out of state. So what they would do is go to the door and they would tell people, we can get you a new roof for free. Usually when people heard that, all the other vetting kind of fell away. People lost their minds at the idea of getting a $10,000, $15,000 roof for free. So instead of taking the time like you would with your own hard-earned money to vet people, to do your research, when this first was introduced, people started just hiring people just because of that free roof offer. And this became pretty much how, I'd say after 2009, the percentage of roof replacements done in Georgia that were done through insurance versus retail, which means your own hard-earned money, went up significantly to where I'd say it probably maxed out 2020, between 2020 and 22, where 90% of all roofs were replaced by insurance.
So it starts up. So 90% of all roofs replaced in Atlanta up until 2020.
2022, something in that range.
Started with somebody knocking on your door.
For the most part, yes.
Wow.
And most of those guys, it got to the point where you even saw billboards that said free roof. And the reason why is because it's been illegal to provide, to cover deductibles since well before 2008, but there was no regulation, no enforcement. And so after years of this, people got the impression that you do not have to spend money on your roof.
Mm-hmm.
You can, and then a lot of these guys, as it's gotten more competitive, have even gone further where they offer to put money in people's pocket.
Okay, so I got a question. I'm just playing homeowner here because this is fascinating. You say there's no barriers to entry. I mean, like I'd like to start a hospital, but there's a few things that I'd have to purchase and credentials I'd have to get, right? Okay.
Yeah.
But to start a roofing business, if I wasn't in the roofing business, our producer, he could go to Home Depot after this podcast and get an apron and a hammer and a flat bar and go out and be a roofer.
He don't even have to do that. All he's got to do is...
well, how does he get the stuff done? I mean, I get the
all he's
part
got to do
about...
is find a subcontractor and...
Are they easy to find? I mean... Is this what they're doing? Really? They're selling
not good ones, but you can find subcontractors. Yes.
Wow.
You could go to a supply house, ask them if they have some subcontractors, and you could create. You don't even need a business license. That's the crazy part. You could just create a Facebook page, start knocking doors tomorrow, and go to a supply house and ask if they have a crew that can install his jobs, and they're in business.
So we're up to year 2022. I'm assuming we're sitting on 2025 now. Is there a happy ending to this story, or are we still in free roof
Here's
culture?
what's going on. Here's the drawback. In the short term for clients, or not clients, homeowners, the positive for free roof culture was that you got a new roof for free. downside of that is that it's caused insurance companies to drastically overcorrect from 2022 to now currently. And what I mean by overcorrect is where you used to have $1,000 deductibles,
Right.
and you used to have full replacement coverage on your roof, which I talked a little bit about in the last episode. Those things are going away. You no longer see $1,000 deductibles. You see percentage deductibles or really high deductibles. And a percentage deductible, which State Farm loves, is a percentage of the value that your home is insured at. So if you have a $500,000 home and you've got a 2% deductible, you've got a $10,000 deductible. That's coming right off the top.
But didn't you? Didn't you say that the way that the storm chasers work is they don't make you pay your deductible anyway? So what do I care if I'm a homeowner and it's a $5,000 deductible, but he's gonna take care of my deductible?
They're not covering your $10,000 deductible anymore.
Oh, they're not?
They can't do that.
Did they ever?
No, because there wasn't $10,000 deductible.
Oh, so when it was $1,000, they could afford to do it.
Correct.
Okay.
And so you've got percentage deductibles, you've got ACV policies, which basically means they pay you for an old roof. You got a $20,000 roof, it's 10 years old, they're going to give you $5,000. Take your deductible off, you could end up having a roof that gets completely totaled, meaning they say the whole thing needs to be replaced, and you could end up getting $0 for that claim. So, and it's also raised premiums as well. So short term, well, the last 10 years, not short term, but the last 10 years or 12 years, it's made it good for homeowners because they got free roofs. Now in the long term, it means your roof coverage pretty much is non-existent. It's moving in that direction. And also your yearly premiums are going to be significantly higher.
So we are not out of the free roof culture, and
No,
we're not in the
what
free
we're doing
roof culture.
is,
where are we at?
So from what I've been able to see and what I've picked up is that, from my sales guys, my own interactions, is that slowly but surely, because of these corrections that the insurance companies have made, people are starting to they're not comfortable with it, but they're starting to accept the fact that they've got to pay their own money. So where it used to be 90%, I'd say now in the last year, it was probably down to 50 or 40% of all roofs that were replaced were actually by insurance. Mm-hmm. This year, it's going to be even less. Mm-hmm. And that's good in the short. I mean, that's good in the long run because it means you're going to be the roofers that are around are not going to be just the guys that got into it for the easy insurance money. Mm-hmm. It's going to be the real roofers that are legitimate that plan to be here for a while. And,
so I heard from a distributor the other day. I thought this was kind of interesting. They have roofing conventions.
Yeah.
All over the place. He said the most popular breakout room at a roofing convention now, the one they just had, I think, in San Antonio, he said the most popular breakout room is filled to capacity, standing room only, teaching storm chasers how to go retail. Is that correct? And what does that mean? I mean, okay, so
retail, storm chasers before used to knock on your door and have you sign a contingency agreement, which, by the way, was also illegal. A lot of these things that roofers have done for years have been totally illegal. So the statute for the state of Georgia on contingency agreements is a residential roofing contractor shall not represent or negotiate or offer to advertise, to represent, to negotiate on behalf of an owner or possessor of residential real estate on any insurance claim in connection with the repair or replacement of the roof system.
Okay, hang on. So if I was a homeowner and I got on the wrong side of that statute, I would just say, well, it was too complicated for me to understand, and it wouldn't affect me. What does all that mean? You carry that around?
No, that? I've got that file just.
Who can whip out that code like that?
Yeah, it's chapter 23 of Title 33. But basically, they used to go around and have people sign this agreement called the contingency agreement, which, as I just showed y'all, is completely illegal. So it's unenforceable. It's not necessarily a crime where you're going to go to jail, but if a roofer tried to enforce that, then chances are that the court would say this is not worth the paper it's written on, but people don't know that. Okay, so they get people in on these contingencies, knocking at the door, and a lot of these contingencies basically say, you're going to sign over all the insurance proceeds, or we're going to do your roof. Okay, so imagine that I'm just a homeowner, and one of these guys just visited me yesterday, and I'm sitting here with this signed contingency that says, we're going to get you a free roof, okay? Mm-hmm. You're telling me that if I start to have second thoughts about this, that this guy can't sue me and make me give up my firstborn or anything like that? When you say no, it's not a valid contract for several reasons. One, the state of Georgia says
feels valid.
Says you're not allowed to do it. 2, there's no specified amount or numerical representation of a contract. It just says RCV. When you sign it, it doesn't say your roof's going to be 20 grand. It says it's going to be the replacement cost value, which is the number that your insurance company determines. And in Georgia, without a numerical value, it's not a valid contract. Let's see, the contract is not valid. There's also no cancellation notice on most of these. And so if there's not a cancellation clause in Georgia, it cannot be a valid contract. So there's multiple reasons and in legit ways a customer can get out of that if they find themselves in a contingency agreement where there's other signs where this roofer is not the right guy for the job. But back to your original question, they used to knock doors, sign people up on contingency agreements, make you think that their presence at the adjuster meeting was vital for an approval, and they would come out, meet the adjuster, and sign you up, write the numbers.
But they do work magic with the adjuster, right? I mean, they get out there and make things happen, right?
Not really. No.
How often do you think they change an adjuster's mind? I mean,
I will tell you, it's usually not changing their mind because of any one thing they point out. It usually would be on relationship. So if they know you, they might swing it your direction, just because, of a rapport that you've built with them. But for the most part, adjusters are going to die. They're like baseball umpires. When they make their mind up, a lot of times they're not going to change. Now, there are other things you can do. There's we have, that you can fight denied claims, but on the initial inspection, and back then it didn't matter. Almost everything got approved.
Right.
Adjusters were paid a percentage of what they paid out, so they were inclined to approve your roof. But basically those guys that used to sign you up, knocking at your door, promising a free roof, now they're having to because people now are wiser. It used to be you came to their door. Now you knock on a door, probably 5-10 people have been there before you. So that does not work like it used to. Guys that used to do 10 million in revenue a year, 2 years ago, knocking doors, are not able to do that anymore. So what they're doing is they're trying to figure out retail, and figuring out retail means they need to know how to bid a job, not using insurance estimates. And they also need to know how to get clients to invite them to their home. And so, there's a lot of marketing agencies that are popping up to try to fill that need. And, but basically that's the big shift. That's why it's a breakout.
Okay, so
before these guys give up, they're taking a crack at retail.
Okay, so let me see if I call somebody. They might be a convert from Storm Chaser to retail.
Yeah, a good way for you to know that is knocking on doors, reviews weren't that important because, again, people were offering a free roof, and unfortunately a lot of homeowners just lost their mind. Everybody was part of this problem. Insurance companies, roofers, and homeowners. We all contributed to free roof culture. But
it was really 90%? 90% of the roofs
of
going
residential
on?
roofs. Yeah, of residential roofs. And I'm sorry, what was the question that you asked me a second ago?
The question is, okay, big deal. I mean, I was a
I'm
storm
sorry.
chaser,
How do
and
you know? How do you know?
I took the course, and now I'm a legitimate roofer. So what's the problem?
First, the way you recognize those guys is, one, look at their reviews. Very good chance that they've bought 100 Google reviews, and some of them it's going to be 6 months since their most recent review. So, reviews are great. We've got a great reputation online. They're all legitimate clients. But the way you
wait a minute, but I don't get that. You say when you're looking at reviews, if I look at a guy's reviews and he's got a 4.8 and 500 reviews, I'm good to go, right?
What you need to do is make sure it's robust, meaning it's not just one platform. A lot of guys that are just faking it, buying reviews, they'll buy a bunch of reviews on one site, which is usually Google.
But not 500.
Well, I'd say 500 is, guys with the 500 are probably somewhat legitimate.
Okay.
I'd say the 100 to 300 range or less, those guys probably bought their reviews.
So you look at those reviews and you're saying if it's been a while since they bought a batch,
their most recent one will be months old. If they're legitimate reviews, they'll have them rolling in on a weekly basis.
Okay, now if I'm that type of roofer, why don't I just buy more often and keep them fresh?
I'm sure they do that. I'm sure there is some that do that.
Or
But what I was saying
did you
is,
just give them that idea? Did you just give them
no,
that
I don't
tip?
think I give them that idea. But I will tell you this: the way you can really see through that is looking for robust reputation. Basically, what that means is that it's on multiple sites. So if you rather than just 100 on Google, they've got a bunch on BBB or a bunch on Facebook as well. If they've got great reviews, even 100 on multiple sites across the board, it's probably a legit roofer. But if it's just 100 on Google, then more than likely that guy is.
I see that it's probably good for everybody in the long run to get out of free roof culture. But if I'm a guy that needs a roof today, I don't really care about the long run and I don't care about what the market's doing. I just care about my house. Now, what would you tell me if I was a homeowner and I'm in the market for a roof? I had this really reputable company come out. They've been in business for decades, and they told me there was no damage. And then I called another guy, and he went up on the roof, and he came down with pictures. There was all kinds of damage. So in that case, why wouldn't I hire the guy with all the damage who says he's going to get it for free? I mean,
so one thing the customers need to do for sure is what another thing that is happening from this tightening up from the insurance companies is the guys switching from insurance to retail are getting desperate. So they're getting pretty bold about vandalizing roofs. So we call them shingle flippers. They get up there and they flip tabs to make it look like wind damage. So if you call one roofer out and he says there's no damage, you need to watch every roofer that comes out after that, because if they get on your roof and start flipping shingles, what could happen is your insurance comes out and says that it's vandalism. They will still pay for the claim, but then you have a vandalism claim on your policy.
That's not good.
That's going to jack your premiums up. Storm claims by themselves do not raise your premiums. They raise premiums for storms on a zip code basis. So if there was 10 million in claims in 30043, everybody in 30043 is going to have a slight raise whether they file the claim or not. Whereas with vandalism claims, that individual person is going to get a direct premium increase because of that vandalism claim. And so, yeah, it's, I hope that clarifies that.
I guess, yeah. So where do you see this a year from now? I mean, is the free roof culture going away for good, or is it just going away for a while?
I think it is going away for good. I think what you're going to see from all this is that our North Georgia still right now has somewhere between 5,000 and 6,000 roofing contractors.
It's a lot of roofers.
A lot of roofers. And when you do the numbers, it's roofers per single family homes. It's pretty crazy. I think it's like one roofer for every 200 single family homes. It's pretty wild. So, what's happening though is the herd is thinning. A lot of those guys that were just in it for the short, fast money, they're starting to get frustrated, and slowly but surely,
what are they doing?
They're getting out of the business. They're going back to whatever they were doing before. Whatever they were doing before. I don't know, waiting tables, personal training, whatever the case may be, real estate, who knows? But the real roofers will be left standing.
Well, I saw a guy it was just a couple of years ago. This guy is a legitimate retired NBA star, and he had started a roofing business. So
he's no longer in the roofing business.
He's not?
No.
Well, it must be pretty good money if a guy that's used to NBA money is going into the roofing business, or it was.
It was good money. I mean, that's why you see all the monster trucks and the jacked up monster trucks, roofers that look like they're on steroids, and that's kind of part of free roof culture, the part that real roofers really despise. And from a homeowner standpoint, I mean, it is good money, but a lot of those guys don't pay their bills either. So after they get out of the roofing business, you could end up with a lien on your home 6 months later from the supply house.
Yeah, that's really just like a urban legend, though, isn't it? People don't really get lien for.
You could call any supply house in the state of Georgia and ask them if they've had to lien homeowners' property, and they'd say, "We have somebody at our corporate office.
Hold on, I wrote a check to the roofer.
Does all this."
I wrote a check to the roofer.
It doesn't matter.
Why?
Because if they don't pay their supply house, where they deliver that material is ultimately responsible for paying that bill. If it's not settled up, and if as a homeowner you do not get a lien waiver.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, then I just turn around and sue the guy, right? So you
were around before free roof culture. What was it like prior to 2008.
Well, I'm out of homeowner character now, and
Yeah.
I'm into old roofer emeritus
I
character.
guess so, yeah.
Okay, it was a totally different world. That's why we started out with we were roofing when roofing wasn't cool.
Yeah.
Because we were roofing. You know, it's funny to me. I mean, I have 20 years of actual hammer swinging on the roof. And when guys go into business and all they're really doing is buying the shingles and then hiring people that they plan to meet somebody this afternoon that's going to put on the roof. But I will say it was more of a gentleman's game. I mean, roofers have always been rough characters, but they've also, for the most part, been very hard workers. And so back in the day, every roofer knew who every other roofer was.
Sure.
And so you kept running into the same guys. I remember a guy I really admire that was my mentor in this business, in this industry. When I first started my company, and I moonlighted for him for a while, and I told him I was going to do this. And I said, "Do you mind?" He goes, "No, there's plenty of work for everybody." And I don't think that's the landscape anymore. I don't think there's plenty of work for
Does
everybody.
his last name begin with an E?
It does.
Okay,
Yeah.
so just on that note, that guy also, to help establish some legitimacy for real roofers, he's part of a foundation or I don't know if you'd call it a foundation, but it's called the Georgia Roofing Contractor Association. And while there's not a state mandated trade license for roofers, there is a voluntary trade license that you can get through the Georgia RCA. That's another great way homeowners can determine if they've got a legit contractor out there, because they're not, to get in that, you have to have a guy that already vouches for you that's in there. And then you also have to take, I think it's 100-question test, and you have to get 90% or better.
He's the president of that.
He's the president of there. He's the board. He's the head of their board.
I think we can say his name because we're only saying good things about
Yeah,
him, right?
go ahead.
Yeah. His name is Mark Ash with an E on the end of it. You said, does his name begin with an E?
That was his mentor.
Frank Eccles was. So everybody knew everybody. So roofers that have been around a long time have all kind of come from the family tree, and so roofing companies popped up as Atlanta population grew. In the early 1970s, the population of Atlanta was about 200,000. So it was about the same size as Des Moines, Iowa. Now the metro population is 6.2 million, and the number of roofers has grown disproportionately to population growth. But Mark Ash is the president of Georgia Roofing.
I just realized something. So you said they all kind of came from the same tree or family tree.
Or two or three. It was, but
so
everybody knew everybody.
The same thing has happened, except
not in a good way?
Not in a good way. So no, with the storm chasers, what they do, and they mass hire. So that's the model of most door knocking companies.
Hire.
It means they put out ads and they hire 20 door-to-door guys in one shot. They do one day of training and then they send you out there to knock doors. What happens is those guys end up learning enough to file claims. They leave and start their own business, which is why another reason why the number of contractors has exponentially grown in the last few years.
It's basically like churning.
Yeah.
It's churning in investments and churning in roofing. So
Sure.
You get a guy, he finds out he can do this. He says,
I can knock on doors.
Big
I can
Daddy's
file
not
a
doing
claim.
anything for me. Yeah,
Exactly.
I can hire.
And so more of those non-experienced, not really real roofers have been, created more and more. It's kind of a snowball effect.
So does that mean that you personally would be a little bit leery of a franchise roofing company?
A franchise? Well, I don't know.
I mean, how do you franchise? If people have to know what they're doing, how can you just franchise all over the country?
Well, they're not necessarily. They're starting their own companies. When these guys, when a door-to-door guy learns the business, he doesn't go out and start X roofing company number 2. He goes out and starts his own business.
Okay.
Now, franchises is a whole other topic, and there's starting to be a lot more of those. And generally, what they are is private equity will send.
That might be a whole topic.
I'll say one thing.
Yeah,
I'll say one thing on it.
This is a teaser for the next podcast. It's not today's thing.
Private equity does a couple of different things. One thing they'll do is come in and buy an established company. The other thing they're doing is they're sending out one man to an area to scout. And when I say scout, I mean they get a business license, a PO box in that, and then they basically run a one-man operation in the city to test the waters. We're seeing a lot of those right now. So that's the two forms that private equity comes in, so far as I can see. But that's a whole other topic.
So let me ask you, urban myth or fact? I have heard, you talked about sophisticated national storm companies. I've heard that these big ones, the sophisticated ones, when there's a big storm in a big area, they actually send busloads of canvassers to that area right away, and then they change the wraps on the trucks that they have in another city, and then they all come
We
here.
can only speak for what they did last time.
What did they do
a big
last
storm,
time?
which, I mean, you were part of this. So what they'll do is they'll rent your name. They'll rent the name of a local company so that they can be, say that I'm a local business. So yeah, that's definitely.
And companies do that? I'm sitting there minding my own business, and somebody comes in and offers.
Well, they offer you $1 million, and a lot of people, homeowners lose their mind about $1,000 deductible. You think Joe Blow roofer isn't going to lose his mind about $1 million?
Is it worth that much to these
For
guys?
us, we were offered that. We decided no, it's not worth it, because when they leave town, all the subpar work that they've done is going to be on us to honor, and we honor our warranty. So if they did 1,000 roofs for this storm and they did a bad work on 20% of them, we end up having to fix those for the next 10 years. So, and then the reputational damage that comes with
For
that
what
is
it's
not
worth,
worth it.
it was more than that.
More than $1 million?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was more than that.
Yeah.
But like you say, you're leaving people holding the bag because all they want is your name, and they say, go on vacation, come back and take your roofing company back in 6 months. We used to call it the salmon and the bear. It's like, the salmon swim.
They come in, they take that big first bite. And
right out of the belly, and then throw
Yeah.
it on the riverbank and,
Yeah.
and leave the spoils for the scavengers. Interesting.
But this is just something for homeowners to be safe now. And the other issue with filing claims now is that if an insurance company comes out, they deny your claim. It used to be where they weren't talking to underwriting. Now, if they come out and they find that your roof has some damage, but they're not going to total it, they're not going to replace it, or it's just aging, that information gets to underwriting. And then you get a nice letter called a non-renewal letter, which comes in the mail and says, Mr. Homeowner, you've got 30 days to get your roof replaced or you're getting
That's
dropped.
blowing my mind. And I'm not even pretending now, because this is something that I don't really get involved with as far as the insurance side of it. You're saying that everything was fine with my roof. A guy showed up, knocked on the door, said, let's file a claim. I filed a claim, and now the insurance company is telling me that I have to replace my perfectly healthy roof.
The insurance came out, met with your door-to-door guy. The roof got denied. Or let's say that they found 20 damaged shingles, and they gave you an estimate for $1,200, and you're getting $0 because you have a $2,500 deductible. What they're going to do is let underwriting know that you've got a 16-year-old roof with storm damage, and that even when that storm damage is fixed, that roof is a liability. So what they're going to do is send you a letter saying that you need to have the roof replaced within 30 days or your policy is being dropped.
At my expense.
At your expense. And the way I know about that is we actually replaced a lot of roofs last year for people that got those letters and called us, and we had to replace the roof for them. So there's just a lot to be considered nowadays when
That's
it comes
like a
to filing.
boomerang.
When it comes to filing the claim,
You had a good roof. You answered the door, and the next thing you know, you're being forced to spend thousands of dollars on a roof.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So you have to be really, as a homeowner, right now, you need to be very diligent about making sure that one, you're hiring or you're getting into an agreement with a reputable roofer. And if a guy just comes out and just tells you right off the bat, you've got a bunch of damage, I can see it from the ground, you need to file a claim. That's sign number one.
But now I feel like I'm stuck. I mean, if I'm a guy, let's say I have a 5-year-old roof and I have a leak, I mean, I can see it's leaking. And I can't call a roofer because that might...
No, you can call roofers. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying you can't call roofers. I'm saying as a homeowner, right now, when you hire a roofer, you should not be hiring guys that knock on your door that just say, we can get your roof approved. You need to vet them. You need to look for people that have been established, not years in business, not years of experience, years of business. Years of experience is meaningless. That could mean that they that this person worked for 5 different companies or started, under one name and then had a bunch of lawsuits. So they changed their name and they've got combined 25 years of experience. Altogether, if you add it up, what you want to find is somebody that's got years in business under the same name, that's got a robust reputation across the board, and that has a repair department. And the reason why you want somebody that's got a repair department is their go-to is not going to be file a claim because all they can do is replace your roof. A company with a legit repair department is going to give you they're going to tell you what you actually need. They're not going to tell you or lead you in the direction of trying to get a new roof. If you need a leak repair, they're going to give you a leak repair estimate. If you legitimately have significant damage, they're going to look at your policy with you and say, okay, you've got a decent deductible, you don't have ACV coverage, or you do have those things. And here's what you have to consider, Mr. Homeowner. Even if they approve this, you're only going to have, $2,500
Is this
from the claim.
Is this true all over the country or just in Atlanta? Are these guidelines applicable everywhere? Because, as I said, we need listeners in all 51 states.
Yeah, you'd really have to research whether or not your state is a regulated state or not. There's varying degrees of regulation, but you would want to look that up, do some research online. Texas is they're pretty much unregulated. There's some other cities in the South or states in the Southeast that are not regulated, but Georgia, I'd say, is by far the perfect storm of weather and lack of regulations. Florida, on the other hand, is the other direction. They run it pretty tight. They run a tight ship. And the reason why is because past hurricanes brought all this stuff into town. Those guys took advantage of homeowners. And so the state had to get involved and make sure that roofers weren't ripping people off. But as a homeowner, you have a roof problem, look for those things, years in business. That should be, I'd say, no less than 5. Also, a robust reputation, at least 100 reviews on multiple sites, and manufacturer certification. Since we don't have a trade license, you can get manufacturer certification through one of the top 3 manufacturers, and they're not giving that out to just anybody. If you use those as your first ways of vetting a roofer and the repair department, you're more than likely going to get a good one out to your home. But to confirm that they have a repair department is a little bit tricky because they all say they do repairs. So there's ways to figure that out as well.
Well, most people tell us one of the ways.
So you can look at reviews online. Look for reviews online, and
they talk about
Google does this cool thing at the top of all of your reviews where it shows you keywords that pop up on a regular basis. If you look at ours, it's going to have things like project manager, supervisor, client service, repairs. That's what you're going to look for. And if it does, it'll pull up all the reviews that say repair in them. The other thing is you can ask them, hey, what's the name of one of your repair guys? I just straight up ask them, what's the name of one of your repair guys? And if
I'll get back to you on that.
If they say, I'll get back to you, there's a good chance they don't have a repair department.
Yeah.
So, and that means you're going to get led to a full roof, whether you need one or not. But
so who's your repair guys?
Jason, not anymore.
He's the legendary retired repair.
Joe, Ben, Noah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Those are real names?
Those are real names. Yeah. And on our website that's getting updated, you'll be able to click on bios and read about each of those guys.
In depth.
Yeah.
That's
pretty much it for Free Roof Culture. But you guys can also go to our website if you'd like to learn more. You can send questions in to Stacy. What's the email? Podcast@leaksmith.com. You can send your questions in. And if we get any of those.
You always should repeat it twice.
Podcast@leaksmith.com.
At Leaksmith, Leak, just like locksmith, only Leaksmith, right?
Yep.
Podcast.
Newer people don't really. I've realized that
people don't know what a locksmith
millennials
is.
Don't really know what a locksmith is anymore.
Oh my goodness.
So when I say, or not necessarily, it's less it doesn't resonate as much as it used to.
Well, I know not to mention jukeboxes anymore because nobody knows who those are.
Yeah.
And I know not to say dial me up or something like that. But okay, so
what's your
Leaksmith.com
podcast@leaksmith.com and go ahead.
Yeah, we want all kinds of questions. We want questions from all over the country. We need listeners in every state. And I think we're prepared to offer a pretty juicy incentive for the first listener that reaches out to us from each state. They're going to get some sort of accent swag. Probably a Leaksmith Podcast t-shirt or koozie or something. But we need somebody to let us know that you heard us and you were in Seattle, or you heard us and you were in Texas. You heard us and you were in Vancouver, wherever you're at. But we're going to make it more and more fun. Are we ready for how to make the world a better place?
How to make the world better. What's the title of it?
How to make the world a better place in one easy step.
Yeah. Which one you got this week?
You want to do it, or you have?
I've got one. I've got an easy one.
It has to be easy. It has to be something people can pull off. Okay.
When you go to the grocery store and after you load up your groceries into your car, put your cart back and put it back.
Yeah.
Not sideways,
Yeah.
hanging out the side.
Okay, we're going to give them 2.
right.
I agree with that, because how many times can you not open your car because somebody left their cart there?
Or it gets banged when somebody just lets it roll down
Get
the
your
parking
stuff
lot.
out of the car. Get those little hand wipes. Pick those up and put them in the trash. And then there's 2 aisles in the rack. There's one for the big carts and one for the little car. Let's keep it orderly. That way the next guy can get his stuff in there.
Takes 10 seconds.
Takes 10
what's
seconds.
You had a second one?
No, that was it. I was
just
just
Good
piggybacking
deal.
on the shopping cart chaos that we've got going on in our society.
So we were still going to use We Were Roofing when roofing wasn't cool.
That's
so,
right. Okay.
Yeah.
That's my sign off now.
That is your sign
and
off.
Where I say something like, until next time, I know you can hardly wait, neither can we. But remember, we were roofing when roofing wasn't cool.
Thanks, y'all. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Tommy and Phillip, the Leaksmith.